Hi everyone. Today we're talking about Samuel and his role as a leader in Israel. Samuel said to all the house of Israel, "If you are returning to the Lord with all your heart, then put away your foreign gods." And he starts from among you. "Direct your heart to the Lord and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines." So Israel put away the Baals and the Astartes and served the Lord only. Then Samuel said, "Gather all Israel at Mizpah, and I will pray to the Lord for you." So they gathered at Mizpah and drew water and poured it out before the Lord. They fasted that day and said, "We have sinned against the Lord." And Samuel judged the people at Israel at Mizpah. Samuel judged all Israel all the days of his life. He went on a circuit by year to Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah. He judged Israel in all these places. Then he would come back to Ramah, for his home was there. He administered justice there to Israel and built an altar to the Lord. So we have this term for leaders in ancient Israel called, typically translated as judge, right? There's a whole book about it that comes right before Samuel. And that's really not the best translation, because when we think of a judge, we think of the person in the courtroom who's giving verdicts. They just sit at their bench and people come to them. The problem is we don't have a word for like someone who carries out justice, right? So it's like justice as a verb. So like a justice bringer, right? That's more the idea of what this person did. And Samuel was kind of the last of these justice bringers. Now, if you know the book of Judges, that system was kind of a mixed bag. There were some that were great and followed God and helped the people. And then you had people that were pretty terrible and selfish. And Samson is really kind of the low point there. I know we like to talk about Samson as this big, strong hero, but he's actually a pretty terrible person, I think is what Judges is trying to communicate. But here, Samuel, he is the ideal, the point is that God is the true king. God is the true leader, and this judge serves under them. So it's like God is king, the judge is like the prime minister. And so I think part of the reason they're talking about Samuel here is it's setting up that right after this, even though we have the ideal judge, the people are going to ask for a king, and that's seen as a bad thing. And so what is the job description for someone in this role? Sometimes they're a military leader. Samuel doesn't do that, but some others do. They can offer sacrifices, as we see here. They can kind of be a mediator between God and people, which is basically a priestly kind of role. And in fact, as we see here, because he atones for their sins, they actually go on and win a big battle. And then the judges also could communicate God's desires to the people, which is basically being a prophet, which is another term even that's used of Samuel. And so it's bringing together all these different roles in this one person. So there's this question of, does this really work, this ideal? I mean, functionally, what does it look like day to day to say that God alone is king? It's always a tricky balance, even today, as we proclaim that Christ is king, and yet we live in earthly nations. Maybe just having one role, whether it's a judge or a king or something else, they can't do it all. And so we need wisdom. Maybe it's less about finding the proper hierarchy, and it's more about finding whoever can lead us to be more godly.